Welcome to Super Entrepreneurs Podcast. Today we have with us Lucas Zeiler and Kal Maadi. They're from MSM Performance Academy, founded by Lucas Zeiler and led by co-CEO Kal Maadi. Hopefully I'm pronouncing the last name correct. We'll get into that. Helps families guide their children to reach college and professional levels in the best way possible, teaching them the fundamentals to maintain sound mind and bodies. Amazing. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you. Appreciate you, and I'm happy to be here.
Yes.
Thank you, Shahid. It's a pleasure to be here as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's great to have you guys. Did I pronounce your last name correct, both of you guys? Like, did I do a good job? Zeiler and Maadi?
It's Zeiler on my end and Maadi on his end.
Okay, sorry. I messed up both.
Close enough.
Close enough. So tell us more about this. So this is like an actual academy, or is it coaching?
Yeah, so it's mental strength coaching, mental performance coaching for athletes. And we, as you can probably guess, mental performance coaching a lot of the times doesn't need to be out on a field or on a court or at the ballpark. It could be online. And so when we first started this, we started doing coaching sessions online, which allowed us to scale and access athletes from all over the country, all over the world. So yeah, we do it's basically a hybrid model of online coaching and in-person events. So we do 4 to 5 day events for the athletes, and yeah, it's pretty much a bird's eye view.
Cool. Now, when you're talking about mind and body, so these are mostly, the clients are mostly athletes. Are these like high school athletes, college, or professional? Can you elaborate on that?
So it's mostly high school athletes. And when we started this, we started in the soccer space. So we started primarily focusing on soccer players. Since then, it became evident that what we were offering was applicable to athletes of all sports, which has prompted our initiatives to expand into other sports. But yeah, so we work with high level athletes, generally in the soccer space, but generally in the high school ages. But we do have a handful of professional athletes that work with us, a good handful of college athletes that work with us. So we've got a pretty wide spectrum of different types of players that utilize our services.
And so mind and bodies. So are you guys actually work on the physical aspect, help them work out, doing the proper workouts for the specific sports, correct? Okay. And then for mind, what do you do for mind exactly?
Yeah, so for the physical side, we have a coach on staff who's Olympic performance coach.
Oh,
He does all the program designs. He assesses all of our players, their physical strengths and weaknesses, and writes programs for their strength development, their physical strength development. On the mental side, we do a combination of things. So we have a course that walks a player from gets them from point A, where they may be having some difficulties with self-belief, some difficulties with self-doubt, perhaps performance nerves that are that exist in their performances that's hindering their ability to perform at an optimal level. And in a lot of cases, players that move up levels that then are surprised or don't know how to handle the higher demand of higher level competition, and reach out to us for help to adapt to those types of demands. So that's usually where players come in at point A, and then point B is everything in between there, the process of taking them from that point to getting them to dominate their environments from a mental side, and getting them to adopt the right mental approaches, the right self-belief, the right perspectives, the right habits and routines that will allow them to dominate their space.
Because they could have all the skills, right? They could be phenomenal at what they do, but the consistency, making sure you perform properly under pressure, right? Making sure you're utilizing those skills in action. That's all the what controls the body, which is the mind, right?
Spot on.
Yeah, I think one of the things, like, I know you're asking about mind and body. To be honest, with the work that we've done, we've been able to learn that they're one and the same to an extent, meaning that they're correlated, right? Like when we're training a player how to have a better and healthier mindset, that has everything to do with nutrition as well, which most would consider an aspect of the physical side of the game, except it's directly correlated. For example, if someone's eating, an athlete specifically, very unhealthy foods, they can have inflammation or dysbiosis in their gut microbiome. And that will send messages to the brain, which can lead to like depression or anxiety and things of that nature as well. So
Yeah.
we specialize in mental training, which means, of course, we focus on the mind, but mind and body, for us, it's one and the same.
You got it. And you need the mind to make sure you're eating healthy, right? You're making sure you're making the right decisions. And then what you're eating also comes back to affect you as well, physically and mentally. Yeah. Yeah. But the mind is pretty powerful though, because if you embed a paradigm in their subconscious mind of a high performing athlete, you probably do see wonders happen, right? You see some of these guys that you work with, the physical and mind both are one, as you say. But when you find someone that you work with and you embed a specific belief about them that, hey, you could do this, but a more deeper level, do you find that their performance is much better?
100%. If you look at the top athletes in the world or the top coaches in the world, and let's say for the athletes, for example, if you ask the top athletes in the world what their number one attribute is or what has helped them become successful, most of those athletes are going to say it's their mindset, right? If
Yes.
you look at college coaches, I've interviewed a ton of college coaches over the years, and I asked these college coaches, what are the top things that you look for in recruiting players? And the number one thing most of these college coaches are looking for is resiliency and leadership. So it's that character element that really comes from the
Mm,
mental approaches that these athletes have, not the physical ones. At the top level, the skills are very close to the same. At the top level, the physical attributes are close to the same. But what separates players at the top level is the mindset. And I think for a lot of youth players, you talk about the mind being powerful. From our perspective, the mind is infinitely powerful. And for a lot of youth players, it's their own limiting beliefs, their own limitations that get in the way. So that's
mhm.
a lot of what we're doing is identifying what are those limitations, helping them unblock those things so that they can fulfill their true potential.
Yeah, it's true, Lucas. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now if I didn't have the transformation that I went through because I would just be too nervous. Just be too worried about what the guest thinks of me. And I'll be just my entire energy and my entire power will be given away if I didn't have the right mindset. I wouldn't take the steps. I wouldn't approach the people that I approach. I wouldn't make partnerships that I'm making. Mind is to me is the everything. Like for me, I can see how we could take someone in business, for example. They've they find business difficult with the self-talk. They find it difficult. It turns out difficult. They change that belief and the self-talk into something. This is easy. This is simple stuff. And it becomes simple. That is pretty powerful.
So Shahid, you mentioned a transformation. Do you mind explaining like what that experience was like for you?
Yeah, thank you. Nobody ever actually asked me questions back, but that's great. I appreciate that. I've been an entrepreneur for a long time, right? And it was a very bumpy ride because I was living from outside in, meaning that whatever happens on the outside was affecting how I was thinking, feeling, and acting. So I'm a certified consultant with Proctor Gallagher Institute. And when I got introduced to the material, I was pretty in a bad place. So once I started realizing the inside out paradigm, then I started working on that, and I started taking control of the thoughts, feelings, and actions. It became more clear. When that clarity happened, I with willpower, you start practicing. The transformation happens then is that when you start looking at things, your perception completely changes. So once the perception changes, your world changes because now your body performs differently, right? Because how you look at things is different. And your thoughts differ, your feeling is what makes the body move. That changes. So the quality of the work that you do changes. So the transformation is a long story. I don't want to take up your time. But it just happened basically in a nutshell. I went from outside in to inside out. That completely changed my world.
That's spot on. That's spot on. And it's so funny you say that because when we work with a young athlete, we're working from the inside out. We're starting from the inside.
Good.
And what's funny is that for us, we see an athlete will start making improvements and start making transformations internally. And you start to get a glimpse of the subtleties of those results externally. But what's funny about that is like the parents that we work with a lot of times are getting anxious and like they're not seeing the external results. And it's, wait a minute, this takes some time. Like that internal work, that takes some time before it's manifested or before it's expressed
Yes.
externally. And
Yeah.
yeah, that I I
Yeah.
appreciate you
No,
emphasizing that. That's huge.
no, no problem, Lucas. And that's so true because that's what we face too when we work with business owners. Is saying, why is this not happening? We need to just happen now. But like you mentioned, that there's series of events that happen, and the inside has to completely shift before it starts seeping over. You fill the glass up and then it starts pouring over, right? So that's when the outside starts seeing it. And it takes time, it takes some more duration increase because now you're making changes on the outside, which is inside is not as easy either, right? Like when you work with people, they have to follow your instructions, right? They have to be coachable, the people that you work with. Now, do you want to talk about that, the
Yes.
coachable part of things? Because I think that's a very important part for anybody that's listening that may want to get your services, how important it is to be coachable.
Yeah, I'd like to get Cal's input on this because Cal has spoken to probably 3,000 families over he's done thousands of consultations over the last few years. Before we transition there, what's really important about this, we touched on this earlier, the mind is infinitely powerful, and most of the time we're just getting in our own way. And so if someone
Yes.
is not receptive to development, they're that's the starting point. You need to be receptive and have an open mind to even start the process. And that's the key, is having the open mind to start the process. And for Cal, like I said, he's spoken to a lot of families. We don't even start working with families unless we feel they're ready. So that's a big part of this, is that old quote, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. That's part of this. You've
Yes.
got to
I
be
love that.
open-minded, and yeah, me too. You got to be open-minded
Mm,
and ready to
yeah.
transform. Cal,
Yeah.
what's your take on that notion?
Yeah, absolutely. We're very selective in terms of the players that we do allow to join our program, but it's not because we don't want to work with more players. It's really because the last thing that we want to do is put them in a position to where they're not getting the results that they expect.
Exactly. Yes.
And a lot of the times, due to the ages of the players that we're working with, it's the parents that initially engage with us. And we tell them straightforward, look, the player has to be the driver of this situation. It's impossible to help someone change who doesn't want to change, who doesn't acknowledge that change is necessary or positive for that matter. So the player always has to be the driver of this situation. And
Yeah.
it's really about them wanting it themselves. And no one can want it for them. Otherwise, it's just not going to work.
And that's why it's so important what you do, Cal, when you meet with people and the parents, the initial meeting and the second meeting, for example, with the player and the parents. I'm not sure how you do it, but I'm just relating to how we do it. And it's so important with that questioning. The questioning that you put forward towards the parent and the child is going to dictate where this is going to end up. And it's benefiting not just you guys, is benefiting them as both parties. Like, you need results, you want results, they want results. And if the proper questionings are in place, you'll be able to determine, okay, this person's going to follow instructions or not. The basic, like you mentioned, the basics can be figured out. What we do is we also get them to sign an accountability agreement to make it official. We make them put it on the wall, so they're always seeing it.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. I think for us, when it comes to like them, you said they have to want to be coachable, right? And then further than that, you had said that they have to, I can't remember. Can you say exactly what you had said just a second
I
ago?
was just saying, like, they need to be coachable for this to work. They need to be able to follow instructions.
There you go. They need to be able to follow instructions. That's 100% correct. But we also need to make sure that it's something that we can actually help with, right? Now, it's very few and far in between that it's not, but those calls are not just about them wanting it. It's also about us making sure that it's something we can actually help with.
It's a good
So,
match, right?
yeah, it's really about us learning more about your goals and whether or not we can help you
Yeah.
accomplish those goals. And if not,
Yeah.
hopefully I can point you in the right direction at the least.
Yeah,
That's awesome. We're gonna be best friends. You know that, guys?
I love it.
Do you
I thought
guys
we
did you
already
guys
were.
go through mindset stuff too? Yourself, obviously. Probably, right?
Yeah, for me, mindset was the game changer for me as a player.
Yeah.
And then as a coach, like, it was evident as a coach, the kids that were mentally strong and the kids that weren't. The kids that were mentally strong were more successful. And I was like, why are they not? Where is this coming from? Like, why are players? Because when I first started coaching, I started coaching at the college level, and kids were getting to that level without being mentally prepared. And in my head, I'm like, why is this happening? Why are these players not equipped, not prepared for the mental demands at this level? And it became evident early in my career that's where the gap was. There was no mental focus for these the youth athletes.
But yeah, don't you see this with a lot of programs out there that they're lacking on the mindset stuff? Like, they got there's a lot of companies I noticed that have the strategy down right. They have all the skills. They're bringing in pro players to help out with the coaching, right? They have everything that you need strategy wise, but what makes them tick, I noticed that there's a lack there. Am I wrong, or is this true?
No. It is true. Look at the U.S. men's national team, for example. I mean, that showed almost like a high school team in terms of some of the things that they were dealing with and how it affected the culture within the club. And it directly translated to the way that they had performed as well. So, yeah, it's 100% true. And then to take a step back to what you had mentioned earlier about us working on mindset, every single thing that we teach to our players, we implement in our own lives.
Same here.
Every single thing that we teach to our players, we implement in our team, in the work environment. So these are not things that we are trying to convince the players to do. These are things that we're doing ourselves, experiencing the results and wanting to share that because we know it could help someone grow. Even for the players, to be honest, it's more than just about the sport. The changes that they experience is throughout their entire lives.
Yeah.
Earlier, one of your first questions was about the improvement that they see, whether or not we see them experiencing improvement. And if you had noticed, I smiled because they say that their lives were changed.
Yes.
They say that
It's
their
not just
lives were
sports.
changed.
Yeah.
It's not just the sport.
It's the five. It's the five F's, right? The five F's that it helps mindset, like working on your mind, working on that core, the power center, is that we call it like financial, family, faith, fitness, friends. These five F's become better. I believe it was in one of the books. I can't remember which one it was, but these five F's become better. So when you work, when what you guys are doing, helping with the mind, you're not just helping with the sports, like you said, you're actually creating their future, for their future family, for their husband, wife, or husband, whichever situation it is, for their kids. When they have kids, how are they going to deal with those kids? How are they going to mold them? Like that, you know what? It's like a string of events happen when you help someone with their mind. It just doesn't end there. It's like a good virus. It just continues on.
Oh, you've hit a hot topic because for us as a team, although we're in the sports performance area, Cal, how about it? Like the biggest reward that we get as coaches is when we hear about all of the things, all of the positive things that these young athletes are experiencing in their lives that are happening even outside of the game. So better relationships with their father, or better relationships or communication with their mother. The whole family is eating better and has better habits,
Mm.
right? Better performing better at school, like socially better with their
Yeah.
teachers and their classmates. Like those are the things that for us are like incredibly rewarding. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell you two stories, and they're going to be on both ends of the spectrum because some cases are extremely peculiar and some cases are, I guess you can say, the norm. But I'm going to tell you two stories, one on each end of the spectrum. Okay. One was about a girl who we had worked with for about 3 years, and she played at the Division I level in college, right? Her goal was to receive an all-state designation throughout her collegiate career, but she never necessarily was adamant about playing professionally further than college, right? So she went through her collegiate career successfully, and when she had graduated, she had reached out and said something very interesting, but it was just as gratifying to us as when a player signs a professional contract. One of the tools that we teach is called the personal protocol, right? And the personal protocol is a strategy that can allow you to get into the right mindset prior to a game, a match, an event, even a test or an exam, for example. I used my personal protocol before this podcast. So, what she had said when she graduated is that she had used her personal protocol for what she called her first big girl job interview. And again, that has nothing to do with sport. Her job had nothing to do with sport either. So it just shows that how it can reign
Yeah.
true throughout their lives
Mhm.
as well. Now, on the complete other end of the spectrum, I remember very early on in my career working with Coach Lucas and here at MSM, there was a family that I had encountered. Normal day, normal call, went about it just as I would any of the other families that I would speak to, except this 13-year-old boy at the time was suicidal. And this came as a complete shock to me when I was speaking with this family. Depression, fear, bullying, anxiety. Although none of those things are positive, it was almost as if I was desensitized because
Mm.
those are the challenges that I'm used to helping players with. However, suicide at 13 years old, I was blown away. I could literally feel the tingling in my skin that I felt when I had heard those words. And I knew that I wanted to help, but I didn't necessarily know if we could help. We're not a medically licensed organization,
Yeah.
but
I know what you.
but with the family dealing with what they were dealing with, an online mental training program is by far not the first thing that they're going to try. They had tried school counselors, psychiatrists, therapists, regular general counselors, everything across the board. Except at this point, they were living with no doors in their whole house and honestly in constant fear. And I can't even imagine what that's like day to day as a parent.
Yeah.
So I remember I had told them that this is going to take some specific discussion. I had talked to Coach Lucas and we decided to take on the challenge. I'm going to read you something really quick. This is from his father, the father of the
just
13-year-old boy.
to let you know that I have another interview in a minute, so I'm so sorry.
All right, we'll finish on this. We'll finish on this
Yeah.
because this will be perfect.
Yeah.
This will be a great end. He said,
Let's see it.
"My son has had his life transformed in the deepest way. Having experienced deep psychological and emotional trauma due to ongoing bullying and harassment by a coach, it got to a point where he gave up on his dream of playing professional soccer, thinking his entire future would involve this type of ongoing treatment from coaches. Even more significantly, one night before going to bed, he expressed that he no longer wanted to live, which is incredibly heartbreaking, traumatic, and infuriating for my wife and me to hear from our child. And this came about from something as simple as a boy playing what is known as the beautiful game and chasing his dream. It instead turned into something so grave akin to running from a nightmare. When I saw a digital ad from MSM, it was a unique ray of hope and an answer to a prayer that spoke directly to our experience. I talked with Coach Cal and signed him up. They were unusually kind coaches with a load of wisdom and tools which my son continues to use. He is now back to chasing his goal to play collegiately and professionally and has tools and support to deal with the trauma. Some completely overcome and some still working on. He's so much more mentally healthy and excited about his life and future. His happiness is back, and I thank God for MSM.
The more good you do, the bigger you grow, and you guys are going to go places because what you did there, what I just heard, what everyone just heard, that is the next level of doing more for others. Because when you do more for others, like I said, you guys are going to see great things, and you guys have the passion, you guys have the drive, you guys really want to help people, not just on the physical, on the game. You just want to make them live better. You want them to have a happier life. That is very spiritual in nature. I don't want to get there, but I'm just saying it's very deep, very strong, very powerful. And we just want more and more people like you. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on this show. Definitely stay in touch, and we'll love to support you in any way we can. If there's something else you would like us to help you with, if you want something that you want to talk about on Instagram Live, I'll be definitely willing to do that to help you guys out where we can spread this message. Thank you. And audience, once again, thank you so much for joining us. Check out their show notes, get in touch with them, and looking forward to see you guys again. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, Shahid. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Shahid. Love you guys.